an under-the-radar, overlooked, often forgot about Georgia Bulldog. We're going to talk about him next on the Locked On Bulldogs podcast.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back. He is Daniel. I am Clint. Together, we are Locked On Bulldogs, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We're your number one source for everything UGA. Trust Daniel and I. Don't trust the jokers elsewhere. They're going to give you false information, false hope about 5-star, 4-stars they don't know anything about. Daniel and I, however, we fan better than anybody else, and that's what we're all about here. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, FanDuel.com. More on them in a moment. But we appreciate the everyday listeners, those of you who are here every single time downloading, being with us. Those who are first listeners, you get in the car, you have to have that cup of coffee as you're driving and listen to our spork joking behinds, and you're here for it, and we appreciate all of that, as well as
we don't understand it, but we appreciate it.
We appreciate it. And we also appreciate the little third segment listeners, those who listen all the way to the end. Daniel, it's the offseason. Couple of quick notes. If you want to feel old today, Chris Connolly, who is not that far removed from being a Georgia Bulldog, has retired from the NFL. Daniel, Chris Connolly after
vocational career is over.
Correct. So there's that.
Okay,
he's back at getting film. Secondly, Nick Chubb is getting a workout and physical with the Houston Texans. So I'm all about them Texans right now. Just
absolutely.
D'Amico Ryan, go get you some, young man. And I call you young man. I'm fairly certain you're younger than me. Today's episode, we're rolling through the off season, tackling the burning questions that you want to know about, Daniel. Every single week, we are tackling more and more, whether it be recruiting, whether it be strength and conditioning, whether it be coaching or player personnel and kind of roster management. You have one for us today that was sent in by a listener. These are great. We love these.
If you're a listener, by the way, you got questions you want us to answer, go ahead and send it in. LockedOnBulldogs@gmail.com. We'd love to field your questions. Let me jump right into this one. Swag Lyles. I don't know what kind of names we're working with here. Who do you, Clint, think is the most underrated player on this Georgia Bulldogs roster for 2025? The one that is getting the least amount of hype for the greatest amount of impact. That's how we're going to define underrated always. Somebody might be a very impactful player.
Yeah.
But they're getting a reasonable amount of chatter to go along with that productivity. Someone may not be being talked about a lot, but guess what? Come this fall, you're not going to hear their name called all that much because they're not really doing very much. Most underrated player would denote that you are getting the most production for the least amount of communication about this player. There's a lot of different position groups you could go to. You could go offense, you could do defense. Where I'm going to open the whole board up to you, Clint. Give me your take on most underrated player on this Georgia roster.
Now, I will tell you, based upon that definition, based upon the production he will give and the chatter that he is getting, not to this podcast, but to everyone else, it's Gunnar Stockton. I don't know why, again. Just please, for the love, answer me this.
Oh, no, if he went deep.
Austin Simmons, Ole Miss quarterback, is rated higher than Gunnar Stockton based on potential.
Make it make sense.
We have more reps of Gunnar Stockton. I have more quantifiable data, and he is just as touted as a recruit. It doesn't make any sense, but I'm not going to go there, Daniel. I'm going to go somewhere because he's going to have to be important, and I think a linchpin on what we want to do this year. And I'm going to try to simplify this game, this season down as best I can. I'm going to distill it down. Okay.
Yes.
Like Grandpappy's old, he's steaming up something in the back and just distilling that on down. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to give you the good stuff. Kirby Smart wants to establish the run again this year. Okay. We were soft on defense in the middle, and we were also soft on the offensive line with notable people missing assignments and not having an actual identity of toughness, of road grading. So we could talk about Ernest Green. Okay, maybe. We could talk about Monroe Freeling. Maybe, but a lot of expectation, a lot have been talked about them. Somebody who's not being spoken about, who I actually liked last year in the rotation, who this year slots into the interior offensive lineman. I'm going to a position group that's not talked about a lot, offensive linemen. When you don't hear their name, they're doing great. But somebody who has been in this program a long time and somebody that I think could have a Solly-like impact. Remember what he did on the interior?
Oh, we remember that.
Here. Micah Morris, y'all.
Okay.
Micah Morris.
I love this.
Is critical for our success this year. I mean, critical. Because if one of those tackles don't work out and we can't rely on an underclassman, a real freshman guy, Michael Morris is going to slot out to the right tackle or left tackle, first and foremost. If our tackles do work out and Michael Morris stays in the middle and he's able to punch guys in the mouth and push them off the ball and reestablish that line of scrimmage, like Kirby Smart says, we must do to have success. We must run the ball better and stop the run. We were so horrible last year. It's going to be a point of emphasis, and the entire offense, including Gunnar Stockton's success and the wide receivers we got coming in, will depend on our offensive line's ability to blast guys off the ball and get going. I will be game one. I promise you, I'll be looking for Justin Williams on defense because that's all my heart wants to see.
The heart wants what the heart wants.
Wants nothing else. And on offense, you can throw the ball out at wide receivers. They can get distance. We could throw some deep balls, and I'll be excited. But when I see Micah Morris driving some dude into the ground on his back 5 yards down the line of scrimmage, I will be hooping and hollering so much more. He's been in this program a long time, Daniel. I mean, redshirt senior, been here a long time, gotten snaps. He brings accountability, reliability, and talent. I'm going Micah Morris. Y'all need to talk about him more.
We've been doing this podcast too long, Clint, because of every name on the roster, this was the one that I was going with. I didn't think you were going to get there. You talked about running the ball. I thought maybe you were going to give, a transfer running back. Even Nate Frazier, I don't think is getting a lot of chatter compared to the season that I think he's going to have. I thought maybe you were going to go there. Do you remember when Georgia offensive linemen used to finish runs? Do you remember when they used to just bury somebody in the ground?
I do.
I'm talking about Ben Cleveland coming down the field, and I mean,
Kentucky.
let me just tell you, risk a 15-yard penalty one time, Georgia offensive line. I won't be mad. I, for one, won't be mad. Take a chance, risk a 15-yard penalty, and show me something. Show me that we're trying to get back to Georgia's roots, to who we are, to who this team is built to be. And I mentioned the running backs, the transfer from Illinois coming in, as well as Nate Frazier. I think the talent is there. And I think a new look on the offensive line is going to set up actually pretty well. Am I a little nervous about pass pro? Yes, I am. Yeah. But do I think it's going to set up well for the run game? I do. And so I don't hate that pick at all. Clint's got a burning question for me that we are going to get to right after we're back from these.
But first, NBA playoffs are in full swing. Daniel said Pacers in 6. Pacers win a dagger. They were only leading for 0.2 seconds.
In game one.
Game one.
Pacers in 6, y'all. Stick by it.
Stick by game 2 happening tonight. Whether it's game time shot or breakout player, there's never been a better chance to get in the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off with player prop performances. Game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to get in on the action. We love making parlay picks. We love doing over-unders. We love doing point totals. If Anthony Edwards was still playing, I would go ahead and say he would be shining out next year. Go ahead, give me that MVP odds because I'm looking at him already.
Hello.
New to FanDuel, perfect time to sign up. FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Daniel,
yes,
this question has a little bit
of a zing to it.
A little bit of a zing because I'm curious. Talk about an unknown and talk about the NIL and transfer, which, by the way, big news this week. We're going to get back to it later on. NIL, there's a whole legislative branch that came out, whole legislation that came out that said, hey, guess what? Anything over $600, you got to report. You have 20 million collectively to spend on your team. 19 million of that will go to men's basketball and men's football. So just so we're clear on where that will be allocated, just straight up that. NIL transfers, guys coming in. It has to do with Micah Morris and the offensive line, but I want a real, honest assessment from you.
You talked about anything else. Come on.
This man is nothing but, if not direct and honest and not compromised.
No.
We talked about maybe running back being somebody who is under the radar, but Josh McCray comes on over from Illinois. Okay. I ask you, give me a reasonable stat line that you would be willing to say he's going to be within 50 to 100 yards of this and 2 touchdowns of this. What are your expectations for him this year, realistically? Because right now, he's slotted as number 2 on the depth chart just because of unknown and injury. Like, if that's a shock to you, go look at the unknown and go look at the injury. He's the second most senior talented running back we have. Daniel, what do you expect out of him this year?
Let me be crystal clear about my expectations here.
Here we go.
He's not number 2 on the depth chart because of unknown and injury. He's number 2 on the depth chart.
Here we go.
Because Georgia has the most talented back that they've had on campus in 6 years plus, in Nate Frazier. And Josh McCray would be RB1 at nearly every other SEC school had he chosen to transfer there instead of the University of Georgia. This guy is physical.
Yeah.
He has got burst. He has got sneaky, quick feet. He's got power that he delivers to defenders. And I'm sorry, if you are, how can I say this delicately? No, forget about it. No, forget about it. If you are so delusional as to continue to clutch that narrative that SEC ball is so much different than, say, Big Ten football.
Here we go.
Where Josh McCray has been. You are simply not paying attention, guys. Like, is the SEC still the best conference in both football and men's basketball and college baseball and golf and swimming and diving and most everything else? Yes, the SEC is still the best conference. But while the gap between the SEC and the ACC, for example, has widened significantly.
Yes, sir.
The gap between the SEC and the Big Ten has shrunk. And if you haven't been paying attention, the Big Ten is not going anywhere, right? Programs like Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Oregon, these programs are not going anywhere. They're going to continue to be factors for national championships. They're going to continue to beat SEC teams and win national championships the way that they did this past year and the year before that. They're going to continue to do that. He comes from a program in Illinois where they go up against stout Big Ten defensive fronts. I'm sorry, but if you think Georgia's going to play a team that's got a better defensive front than Michigan had 2 years ago, you are a fool. You're a fool. They're just not one in the SEC. There's 3 current NFL players on that defensive line, and he ran straight through them like a hot knife through butter. Go back and watch the film.
Yes, sir.
He is a very talented back, Clint. And while we came into this season before the transfer portal window opened, we came into this season saying this is going to be the Nate Frazier show this year to an extent that we hadn't seen before. Kirby likes to split carries. Mike Bobo likes to split carries. They like to keep guys fresh. And we said, you're not going to see that this year. This is going to be like a Herschel Walker type distribution of carries for Nate Frazier. Well, now all of a sudden they go and they fix that problem in the transfer portal, which Kirby Smart has proven that he's more than willing to do. They fix that problem in the transfer portal. And now I think you're looking, Clint, at like a 55-45 split at most. And listen, anyone who's good enough to beat those two guys out for carries, right? Bowens, anybody who wants to throw their name in the ring to beat those two guys out for carries, good on you. I would love to see it. I would love it if there was somebody good enough to get onto the field ahead of garbage time. I think these two guys are going to run all over. I think we're going to go back to establishing the run. And so even if Nate Frazier gets slightly more, I don't think it's going to be that much more. And so listen, Clint.
Go ahead.
I'm going to give you 850 and 6 touchdowns for my man. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we got to the bowl game, the college football playoff, and there was a shot, like he was flirting with 1,000 yards. I wouldn't be surprised if Nate Frazier became the first back in quite some time to eclipse 1,000 yards. I've already gone on record and predicted that. But I think we're looking at something like a 1,100 yards and 800 yards split between these two guys. So, yeah, if I can within 100 yards and within 2 touchdowns, give me 850 and 6 touchdowns. Am I way off in terms of your estimations?
Again, been doing this for far too long. I was trying to bait you into lowballing this, man. I just want to give you
the way you set up the question was foolishness.
I just want to go ahead and just state for the record, this again, factual evidence. Okay. Nate Frazier, Josh McCray last year. You said it. Josh McCray going up against, first of all, South Carolina in a bowl game. So there's that. Oregon, who, very, very good. Michigan, Penn State, Nebraska. You can say what you want about Nebraska. They have some dudes that can play over there. Nate Frazier's stats last year, 5 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns. Josh McCray, 5.2 yards per carry, 10 touchdowns. Now I get it. The SEC has the bottom half of the SEC is likely stronger than the bottom half of the Big Ten. I get it. I understand. I'm not fighting. What I am saying is Illinois does not have the talent that Georgia has up front and doesn't have the roster composition. Okay. I'm just here to tell you. Watching him play and the games that he did it, Josh McCray, when the average that he had the last 4 games of the season, 6.8 yards per carry, 4.5, 4.2, 8.8. Before that, if you want to add 5 games, 10.3 against Michigan. This man can run the ball. Nate Frazier had some against Tennessee, for example, 3.6 yards per carry. Ole Miss, 3.9. Texas, 2.5. Now, some of that injury, clearly. But Josh McCray, no, you're not off, Daniel. He's flirting with 1,000. I think that's true. Big-bodied, fast dude. I'm telling you, looks like Zeus a little bit, guys.
Yeah.
6'1", 235, has nimble feet, burst, and he's coming from the Big Ten where he's used to touting the rock like this. He's used to running the ball. He's used to doing it. This was again somebody else I was looking for under the radar, but I think it was splitting the carries. 6, 8 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns, double digits on that. Absolutely. You're not off at all, Daniel. Tried to bait him. He didn't take it. Hey, look, after this, we're going to come back. Daniel's going to give me a question one more time. We're going to go through this, and it's a burning one. It's a humdinger. Better get back for this after these.
All right, Clint, we're going to keep it all in-house here. I'm gonna mirror your question,
okay,
with another guy that I think is flying under the radar.
Great.
Okay, and I'm gonna ask you to provide me with a little bit of a, not necessarily a statistical prediction, but an overall prediction on how much effectiveness we can expect to see out of London Humphreys. And so London Humphreys, a guy we all know, comes onto campus last year as a transfer. I think guys were pretty optimistic about what he might bring. We saw some athleticism. We saw some flashes. I think what people forgot was that while he did have a little bit of production over at Vandy, he's still a very young football player.
Yes,
and I think that showed last year. But London Humphreys is back. He's back on campus. He's back in that wide receiver room, a wide receiver room, by the way, that we have talked about. I mean, more than any other position group this offseason, Clint. I think it's fairly safe to say, with the big name transfers coming in Noah Thomas and Zachariah Branch. And then you've got the return of Colby Young.
Yes, sir.
And then you've got the addition of two dynamic freshmen in Talon Taylor and CJ Wiley, two guys that I think are going to be electric in their Georgia careers.
Yep.
As well as a lot of other somewhat proven, some are proven, some are unproven, guys like Dylan Bell, guys like Sokovie White. Like, there's a lot of names in this room, Clint.
Absolutely.
A name that I do not hear referenced a lot at all is London Humphreys. Do you think that he gets, because we see this from time to time, do you think he gets passed by on this depth chart? Do you think it's too much talent and he's not able to compete? He's not able to find his niche? Or do you think this is a year that he says, hey guys, don't forget about me, and he establishes himself a role on this team and provides critical value for this Georgia team? Is he a candidate to be a potential sleeper on this Georgia football team?
Okay. Couple of asterisks before we get going and understand where I'm going to go ahead and get with this. His range, Daniel, this year, and nothing would shock me if he gets 6 catches this year or he gets 40 catches this year.
That's why I asked about him. I think he's one of the most interesting players on the roster.
He is a wild card this year. And if you think no way he leads this team in catches.
No way? I'm sorry, did you say no way? Is that what you said?
The wide receiver room has been reset. There is no pecking order.
It's a full reset.
Okay? It is a scrap everything that was last year, bringing a whole new crew. Dylan Bell, even if you want to count him as somebody coming back, his role is more akin with the transfer. Josh McCurry already talked about. His role is more akin to a jack of all trades than it is anything else as a true wide receiver out there. Okay, so that's the first thing. The range is wild. Secondly, I'm going to partner up a couple of people in the wide receiver room. Colby Young, Noah Thomas, more similar than they're dissimilar. They kind of are a tandem, right? Zachariah Branch, Sokovie White, more of that speed, more of that slot. They kind of partner up there. That leaves kind of the odd man out, quote unquote. Dylan Bell I already talked about as a very, very utility knife jack of all trades guy who could be lining up in the backfield if we have a little injury to start the season. That leaves London Humphreys with a carved out role in this offense in a rotational manner. Slot, yep. Streaking up the seam, yep. Being on the outside, yep. Being in trips on one side of the field in between a Zachariah Branch and a Noah Thomas, absolutely. I could see all of those playing.
Yep.
Put him in motion. Yep. What I saw from him last year, if you remember the Tennessee game, he showed out a little bit in that game. Georgia Tech had a couple of nice catches. I anticipate him really finding his best utilization. Not only in the slot as a slot scat receiver. Don't hear me say that. I'm saying in the middle of the field, digs, posts, in that curl area, the screen game, also having the ability to go deep, however, put on the afterburners and get over the top of a defense. He isn't great at one thing. I don't think yet because we haven't seen enough, but he is very good at many things. And I think within this offense, what Mike Bobo wants to do, he's going to be able to play around the field. I think reps for him are going to be sky high. And with that being said, Gunnar Stockton, we've seen him play. He does not favor any single receiver. Gunnar Stockton is going to find the soft spot in the defense. London Humphreys coming back. He's smart. He's talented. I think he has good hands. That's one thing I do
Yeah.
trust and believe in him. So here's where my honest assessment is. I think if you were to give me closer to 40 or closer to 4 catches, I'm taking closer to 40 catches right now. I truly am. I'm saying he gets up 25 catches, which is a huge improvement from last year. A very, very, that's a stable contributor on this offense because we got lots of mouths to feed, and Mike Bobo likes to get the ball out to a lot of different people. I think the most important thing, if I were to give a stat, over under 16 yards per catch, I'm going over for him this year. Over 16 yards per catch is where I'd put it on. I think he's going to have a very, very solid year because of the reset. I think Noah Thomas is going to have that red zone. Colby Young is going to have that red zone. Zachary Branch might have more catches than him, but a little bit lower average. But I think what we saw, Oscar Delp was what we hoped London Humphreys was last year. Like Oscar Delp kind of tried to fit that role a little bit. And I think the wide receivers going to go have more separation from everybody. It's going to leave guys like London Humphreys kind of forgotten by defensive game plans. And I think that's a huge mistake. I'm giving him 25 catches, 26, 27 catches, somewhere in there. I'm going to have 16 yards per catch, Daniel.
So you got him up close to 400 yards.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
a solid year.
That'd be a solid year for London Humphreys. Listen, I think I agree with you. I agree with your points. I think there's only one thing that can stop London Humphreys from having a great year for Georgia this year. And that one thing is playing time. And there's only one way, in my mind, there's only one way that London Humphreys doesn't get playing time. And guys, it would be a great problem to have. And that is, I see it being pretty impossible to keep London Humphreys off the field unless either Talon Taylor or CJ Wiley is a generational talent. Like that they're on campus right now, and the offensive staff is looking at them and thinking what Todd Monken was thinking about Brock Bowers. Like, oh, I knew they were good when we recruited them, but I didn't know that they were that good. And all of a sudden you're going to see a true freshman who's going to demand playing time. And guys, we hadn't seen that at wide receiver since Jorge Pickens. And like, we would love to see it again.
Yeah.
But barring that, I don't see a way that London Humphreys doesn't get a ton of playing time this year. And I think, to your point, he offers a skill set that is going to prove him very useful. He's got trustworthy hands.
Yes.
Which is why I think a lot of people were clamoring for him to see more time when he wasn't injured last year on the field. And stock up. I'm stock up on London Humphreys right now for the Georgia wide receivers.
Yes, sir.
He is Clint. I am Daniel. We are Locked On Bulldogs, and we will be back later this week with more on your Georgia Bulldogs. Email us your questions and thoughts, things you want us to talk about, and we will talk to you guys next time.
See ya.